Good evening, everyone. This is Devamitra welcoming you all to Mystic India Festival virtual. To grace our platform, today we have Dr. Sarada Natarajan with us. She is the president of Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, rendering full-time honorary service to the center from 1982 after completion of her post-graduation. The session will be enlightening about the teachings of Shri Ramana Maharshi. Dr. Natarajan is a triple gold medalist holder in MA in English and PhD in English from Bangalore University. She has authored multiple books like Ramana, Way in Search of Self, Surging Joy of Self-Discovery, The Wondrous Vigilance, and etc. She is a trained Carnatic classical musician from Guru Srimati Sulochana Natarajan. She is also a trained theatre artist in Bharatanatyam under Guru Kumari Meenakshi of Veena Vishalakshi Art Center, Bangalore. She has conceived, scripted, and directed 125 theatre productions. She has predominantly worked in literature as well as television arena. Now, I would request Dr. Natarajan to kindly begin with the session. Thank you.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. With the grace of that self, which is manifest as the life and teachings of Bhagavan Shri Ramana Maharshi, which essentially it encompasses within itself, it holds within itself the entire tradition of the Vedas and all the scriptures. And in that essence, we will now delve into a bit of that, because the essence is always full. It is said that if one takes one grain of rice, that grain of rice actually gives us the taste of the entire rice which is cooked. That is the Indian saying, the Tamil saying, and must be saying with various Indian languages as well. We are on the subject of who am I? The subject of who am I? What is the relevance or the experience of the subject of who am I? To go into that, I will delve into the story of one boy of 12 years of age, more than a century ago. And this boy, suddenly he was faced with the fact of his father's death. He was called from where he was studying to say that his father had passed away and his father was lying there. But this young boy, he asked his relatives, he said, "Why do you say father has passed away? Why are you weeping? Why are you crying? I have seen father like this every day when he used to go to sleep. And he would not wake up. He would wake up on his own. Sometimes when he was called, he would not wake up. So this is not different. Why is everyone weeping?" But they told him, "No, this is not sleep, it is death." And then later, the boy saw the father's body being taken to the crematorium and cremated as well. At that time, a question rose within him. A question rose wherein he asked himself, if my father had been that body which was cremated, nobody would have cremated the body because we all loved him. Everyone loves him. So why would anyone have cremated that body if that had really been my father? And in any case, how could that body have withstood the cremation? It would have, even at the slightest of the touch of fire, it would have reacted. It would have said, "No, don't burn me." It did not do so. There was no reaction over there. So this body which has been cremated, which they are saying, my father died, that body was not my father at any point of time. That which was my father has left the body, and that is what they are calling death. And my father's I has left his body, but my I is still within me. The boy intuited by analysis, by going within, looking at the situation, and he understood at that point of time that the body is not I. So the question, who am I, in a seed form, came into this young boy of 12. But subsequent to that, like all young boys, he was playful, he was studying, and he was very healthy. He was physically extremely strong. He was a wrestler, a swimmer. He would learn and practice some of the South Indian martial arts. So there was no thought of the body not being I. There was no thought of his father's death. Apparently there was no such thought at all of any spiritual question, did not seem to be there with him. In that period, after his father's passing away, when another event happened. This was when he was a boy of 16. 4 years had passed. He was 16 years old, and he happened to be alone. He had moved to his uncle's house, and he happened to be alone there that afternoon. And at that point of time, he was suddenly gripped by a very, very intense fear of death. He felt, right now, I am dying. There was no reason for it because he was healthy. He was in the peak of health, as it were. And there were no immediate incidents to provoke the fear of death. But what he did was, normally when we get any fear, whether it is fear of death or any other fear, we turn to our near and dear ones to express the fear, and especially such a strong fear of death is coming. We would maybe want to go to a doctor. Surely we would go to some relatives or friends to express that fear. But this young boy of 16, he felt that there is no escaping it. So he did not think of any escape routes. He did not think of moving away from it by seeking the help of friends or doctors or anything. On the other hand, he felt this is a certainty. I am going to die now. So what can I do? So he said, let me find out what death means. And he lay down and he held his limbs, he stretched out and held them stiff. As if, he says, rigor mortis had set in like that. And he held his breath. He did not breathe. Being an ace swimmer, he was possibly capable of holding his breath. So he held his breath. He didn't breathe. And he said to himself very intensely, okay, now this body is dead. It's dead. And what will happen? He has already seen what will happen, right? So what will happen? It will be carried to the cremation grounds. It will be burned. It will be reduced to ashes. So it's gone. Finished. But he says, this entire process, I know. I can see. I am witnessing it. As who am I witnessing it? Who is the witness? Who is that? What is that force which is aware of the death of the body? he became aware of that consciousness which he recognized. He says this was a current which transcended the body, it included the body. The body is only one part of this. This is the universal consciousness. And it's an extraordinary energy, if we can call it. He called it a current. He did not know anything about any definition of that experience. He had not read any scriptural books, and he was not having any questions before that. He did not know that there is a universal consciousness. He had no clue about any spiritual matter, other than one experience which he had was that there was a name which was constantly ringing within him. He called it as Purana, and that was the name of Arunachala. And he did not know what was Arunachala. He had found out just before his experience of death that Arunachala is actually a sacred place on earth. Now he had this experience, and he found that his entire attention was constantly drawn to that awareness, that consciousness of his own nature, which was all encompassing. And later, due to the movement of some circumstances, he left home, he arrived at Arunachala, just a boy of 16, with some difficulty. It was a difficult journey. He had very little money with him, and he had not taken more. He had not told at home where he was going, but he arrived at Arunachala, and he reported to Arunachala, saying, "Father, I have come." And then he threw away whatever little belongings he had. He wore a loincloth, and he remained there in different parts of the Arunachaleshwara temple, including for some months in an underground shrine which is called the Patala Lingam, which was totally deserted. And in those days, it was the home for scorpions and snakes and every kind of vermin, which actually began to eat into his thighs. Food, sometimes somebody would give, otherwise, when it was given, it was eaten. He had no concern. But when he was found there, at the behest of one Sheshadri Swami, and brought out, the devotee, the person who brings him out, Venkatachalamudali, he says, "I felt as if I was in an extraordinary presence. Perhaps I could compare it to the young Dhruva who was lost in tapas, and he was totally unaware of his surroundings, and he was in bliss." So he established to all who saw him that the body was not I. Not only had he experienced it, he could show it through his life that the body was not I, and that he was in bliss regardless of every external circumstance. Later, he began to live on the hill. People started approaching him with their spiritual doubts, and one such person, the first of the two who approached him in the very beginning, this was in 1900 and 1901. One was a person called Shiva Prakashan Pillai, and he approached him saying, "I have been haunted by the question, who am I? Can you throw some light on this question?" At that time, the young sage was not speaking, he wrote down some answers. And he wrote down the answers and he began his answers with the purpose of the question, who am I? Why should we find out who we really are? Why the doubt about our own nature? He had the experience, but he was codifying it in a manner that is available to one and all, which everyone can understand and relate to through their own experience. So that is how he explained it. He started with the explanation that every living being is seeking only one thing, and one thing always, and that is happiness. Everyone wants to be happy. Happy always. Not happy for one day and sad the next day. No. Not happy for 10 hours and then unhappy for half an hour. No, not even that. We do not want even the slightest trace of unhappiness to touch us in any way. And this sage, who is Bhagavan Shri Ramana Maharshi, who was later announced to be Bhagavan Shri Ramana Maharshi by a disciple who came in 1907, Ganapati Muni, he at that time told Shiva Prakasham Pillai, everyone wants to be happy. And what is the reason why everyone wants to be happy? The reason is that being happy is one's own nature. It's very funny, isn't it? We think that we need to find happiness. We think we are in search of happiness. We do so many things. In fact, we do everything only in order to be happy. If we really pay attention to the millions of things that we do, and we put to ourselves the question, why am I doing this? We may seem to have million different answers, but if we put that question again, say if I say I want to do my post-graduation, I want to study because I then later want to do my doctorate and I need to do my post-graduation in order to do my doctorate. And why do I want to do my doctorate? I want to do my doctorate because then people will look up to me, they will have some regard for me. Or I want to do my doctorate because I love the subject which I am studying. I want to study it more and more. But what does it give me? If I love my subject, what does the study of that subject give me? It gives me happiness. That's why I want to study it more and more. The getting of the title, the getting of the doctorate gives me happiness. If it were to give me unhappiness, would I pursue it? If something is certain to give us unhappiness, would we consciously pursue it? Somewhere in the corner of our mind, though you see, supposing actually in one example, in a discussion with Ramana Maharshi much later, a devotee asks him, he says, isn't it true that there is happiness in the pursuit of some objects? Give me an example, says Ramana. And he says, what about when somebody has something tasty like a sweet, sandesh or something like that, something very tasty, or chocolate? Oh, something which somebody likes. Some people like something sweet, some people like savory dishes. But he gave the example of a sweet. So he says, if somebody is having something sweet to eat, they are happy. So how do you say the happiness is not in the sweet, but in my own nature? Then Ramana said, okay, but what if you offer the sweet to somebody who is suffering from diabetes and who has just undergone treatment, maybe a surgery for a carbuncle or maybe some other problem, a surgery because of diabetes, would he also want to have a sweet? No, what about healthy people? Okay, what about someone who's eaten their stomach full? They wouldn't want it. So the point is that he's saying it is not in the object. You may be looking for happiness in an object, but actually you're looking for it in an object only because it is your own nature. Because it is your own nature, and that is why everyone loves himself or herself so much. They're all so dear to ourselves. Then why is it that we are not experiencing joy all the time if happiness is our own nature and we have lost it, and that's why we are searching for it? Ramana gives the example of a river. He says, the water, it rises as vapor from the sea and then it comes down as rain and then it comes down from the hill as a stream, then becomes a big river and finally it rests only when it joins the ocean. It can rest only then. So it's like that we are moved away from our own true nature and we are restless, we are seeking, we are searching here and there, everywhere we are searching because we cannot rest until we find our own true nature, he says. And we are not experiencing that joy, that bliss, because we have divorced ourselves from our own true nature by limiting ourselves to an entity. We think we are a name and form. But when we go into the question, who am I? If that question hits us, because when we look at our lives, we find that first of all, the name is just a name. We can have millions of names, we have different names by which people call us, our dear ones call us, sometimes a pet name, a dear name, an endearment, or somebody who's angry with us can call us bad names also. There can be different names. And we have titles, and somebody can call us by our title. Somebody could call me just doctor. Somebody might call me by my first name, by my second name. How many names I have? And so that's not I. And I could change it if I want to. So that's not I. And what about this body, which I think is I? Then Ramana says, where does this body disappear, or what happens to this entity which you have during waking, in dream, and in deep sleep? What happens to that entity? It disappears. It changes. In dream, this body of the waking body is lying on bed. It's absolutely still not having any experiences. And there is a dream body undergoing so many experiences. And in deep sleep, there is no experience of the world, no experience of the body. But I exist, very much so. And I wake up and I say, I slept well. And if anybody tells me, don't ever go to sleep again, because you lose everything in your deep sleep. Do I go and worriedly tell somebody, I think you should stop me from going to sleep? Because I lose everything when I go to sleep. I lose the world, I lose all my dreams, my concepts, everything, and I lose my body. I lose everything, absolutely. If somebody stops me from sleeping for 3 days at an end, then I will be a wreck. What is it that I enjoy in deep sleep? What is it that each one of us gets back to in that deep sleep? But which we do not identify, which we do not recognize, is our own, essentially our true nature that is available to us at all times, but we lose it because of our identification with a limited entity when we are awake. And even if we look a little deep at our waking experience, we will know that Ramana says everything, this whole body, this whole world which you perceive, where does it exist? This so-called waking world, the real world, with its pluses and minuses, with its turmoils and turbulences and ups and downs and the difficulties which we are facing and which we want to overcome in order to be happy. Where does this exist, even during the time of waking? How do you know there is a world? How do you know there is a body? How do you know there is joy? How do you know there is sorrow? Where is all this happening? If we pause, if we inquire to know where is my life happening, if we begin to inquire seriously, intensely, to know, because life is just going on, going on, going on. Should I not pause to know where is it happening? Where am I experiencing everything? And then I realize that all the experiences are happening only in my mind. For me, for each one of us, every experience is happening only in the mind. We may be seeing something. If our mind is not there, we do not see. We may be listening to something. If our mind is not there, we do not hear. And there is a thought in our mind. There may be a thought of sorrow, but the next moment, if there is a thought of joy, if there is something sweet, the sorrow disappears, that thought goes away. Or there may be a thought of joy, and if something else sad happens, then the joy disappears and sorrow comes. Something I like may be in front of me, a beautiful scene may be in front of me, but if my mind is sad, that scene is not beautiful. Whereas there may be no beautiful scene in front of me, but if my mind is at peace, if I am at harmony with myself, with my mind, at that time there is peace, there is beauty, there is everything beautiful, lovely happening, everything seems fine. So where are we living actually? Ramana says you're only living in your own mind. Everything is happening for you in your mind, and your sense of being, whoever you are, is a mental picture of yourself. So, if you really want to know who you are, if you want to know whose life it is, shouldn't you pause and look at what this mind is? What is the mind? This is the question to which Ramana leads us. And since we are having a quick glimpse at the whole process, we will not go into this inquiry, but we should go into this inquiry, each one of these steps, each one of these experiences which Ramana is pointing out to us. We must, if we need to benefit from it fully, we must make it our own. We must inquire, we must live with that experience fully, and then we can understand its true import. But now we will go through the steps which he has explained. That, yes, if you recognize that presently your world is only in your mind, in order to become happy, in order to know yourself fully, which alone can establish you in happiness, you need to first understand the nature of the mind. So look at your own mind. First accept that you are living in the mind, and then begin to examine the mind. Look at the mind and ask yourself, what is this thing called the mind? Manasantu kim. Manasantu kim. What is this thing called the mind? What is the mind? I say I'm sad, I'm happy, I want, I don't want, I like, I dislike, and I am constantly pursuing these thoughts of mine in the hope of becoming happy without ever asking myself this question: what is it in me that is saying all this? What is it that says I'm happy? What is it that says I'm sad? What is it that says I'm angry? What is it that says I'm peaceful? It is my mind. What is it that says I am Sharada? It is my mind. What is it that says I see? Not my eyes. It is my mind which says I see. What is it that says my body is feeling comfortable now? It is my mind. And what is it that says my body is not feeling well now? It is my mind. My entire experience of the body and through it of the world is happening only in my mind. But if somebody asks me, what is your mind? Do you know what your mind is? It would be difficult to answer. It is not so easy. The answer does not come all at once. But Ramana has told us. And since he has told us, and we have tried to see based on his words, so we say, sharing his words, Vrittayo Manaha. The mind is only a stream of thoughts, or a stream, or a bundle. It is thoughts. The mind is thoughts. There are thoughts. If you say that, what is it? What is the mind made of? What is the stuff of the mind? It is thoughts. There is nothing in the mind other than thoughts. There are different thoughts. As we said, there are thoughts of the body, there are thoughts of subtle experiences, there are thoughts of different emotions, but all are thoughts. There are only thoughts in the mind. Thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. Nothing but thoughts in the mind. This is the next great revelation that we get from Ramana's teachings, which help us to know who I am. First, we get the revelation, we are living only in the mind. Next, we get the revelation that the mind is only thoughts. Apparently different, varied, multiple. And so apparently varied and multiple that we are completely overwhelmed by our own minds, which show us such a wonderful drama. All the time, such a variety. Those same things again and again, there seems to be a lot of variety, which captures our attention. And we forget to recognize it's all only thoughts. All only thoughts. There seems to be two parts. There seem to be two parts to the mind. There are these thoughts, and there is one who recognizes the thoughts. I know my thoughts. They are my thoughts. They are my thoughts. Every one of them. They are not I. They are experiences which come and go. Thoughts which come and go. Experiences which come and go. And I know every one of them. I can say that I was happy, now I am sad, I was angry, then I was calm. I had these experiences yesterday and I remember them now, and I don't remember some experiences now. My memory, which is a thought, I know. My absence of memory, which is a thought, I know. I know that I know something, and I know that I do not know something. If somebody comes and asks me, do you know Greek? I say, no, I don't know Greek. Are you sure you don't know Greek? I am sure I don't know Greek. So I know that I don't know something. I know that I know something. So this knowing, the one who knows everything, the one who experiences everything, that I. Who is that I? That I is not the moving thoughts. So the question goes deeper into us, and when we ask ourselves, who am I who experience all this? Who am I? Obviously, I know myself, I am aware of myself. Within me, there is that sense of I-ness. That sense of I-ness within me is unbroken. It forms the basis of all my experiences, but I do not value it in itself, and therefore have never tried to pay attention to it or to ask myself, who is this I? Who is this I who is there as a constant basis for all experiences in my waking and in my dream? There is a sense of I-ness, an identification, which is not fully defined, but it defines itself from moment to moment. It defines itself with reference to the experience as if it has no meaning in itself. When I am sad, I say I am the person who is sad, and when I am happy, I say I am the person who is happy. An actor does not say that he is the one who is playing the sad role or the happy role. He knows who he is. He may be donning, Ramana says, the role of a king in one scene, and in the next scene, he may become the king's servant carrying the slippers of the king, and he does not weep for himself, saying, "Oh my God, I was a king and now I am the servant." No. In the scene where he plays the king, he plays the king. And when he has to play the servant, he plays the servant with all humility. And he feels happy that he is playing every role perfectly, because he is neither the king nor the servant, and he knows it fully well. But we do not know. We get lost in each and every role or each and every experience which life throws to us. We get lost in it. But Ramana says, you can inquire. And you can inquire, he makes it so simple. He says, don't worry that you have millions of thoughts to tackle. Don't worry. Because you know the secret, the next secret which he gives us, the next clue, invaluable clue which he gives us, is that at one point of time, at any one moment, there is only one thought in your mind. Learn to tackle that one thought. Learn to see yourself, the truth of yourself, apart from that one thought. Don't get lost in the millions of thoughts that are there. And when we studied psychology, a little bit of psychology, I was happy to have learned and studied. And we had an experiment. We had a few experiments with attention, span of attention, and the way the attention moves. And psychologists have discovered this truth. They say that at one point of time, you can have only one thought. What about, it looks like we have millions of thoughts in our minds at a time, at least hundreds. That's like an animation movie being played. In an animation film, There are only number of stills. There is no movement at all. And it is the same thing with our minds. There is no movement in the mind. But our attention, the attention of the thinker, moves from one object to another. And when this movement happens very fast, then there is a sense of movement in the mind. So Ramana says, first slow it down by just asking, just recognizing, okay, all this movement is a thought. Thought is movement. The word in Sanskrit, vritti, means movement. So this movement, just hold it for a moment, pause. Pause and say, whose thought is it? It is my thought. My thought. Okay. If it's my thought, then the thought is not I, right? But do I want to know who I am? Or am I satisfied just seeing myself as a relative entity? I exist because the world exists. I exist as a thinker because my thoughts exist. Is that the case? Is that the truth about myself? And if we delve into that, if we learn, he says he will to drop a single thought through the question, who am I? For whom is this thought? It is for me, but who am I? Then we would recognize that we are free. We are not dependent. We are not relative, limited entities, but unlimited. The fullness of consciousness, the fullness of bliss, the fullness of love. And he revealed through his life what it means to be in that bliss. What does it do for oneself? What does it do for the world if we are concerned? All the time we are concerned about our social responsibilities. What does this knowledge of the self do for the world? We could see that, for one thing, anyone who came into the presence of Ramana was drawn into that very self-same bliss, that very self-same peace, and it was available not just to human beings, it was available to every living being who came into his presence. So many came and went. Wild animals would come, tigers would come. They would communicate with him, leopards, tigers, snakes would come and play with him and go away. Scorpions would just climb on him and go away. Monkeys, he would converse with the monkeys. He understood he knew he was one with the whole universe. There was just the universe within that. Because the universe is contained, as he said, the body is contained in the self. So the monkeys, he knew their laws, he knew their lives, he knew their kingdom, he knew how they lived, he knew what they spoke. It was every living being was there, was part of that gamut. So it's an opening out of the infinite love. It is the opening out of the joy that knowingly or unknowingly we are continuously seeking. And the very first and most important step to discovering who we are is love for that. The need to know who I am. Because if one does not have a need to know who one is, why would one take up the search? Why would one follow the methodology? Why would one then experience it? If I do not want to go to a place, Would I even venture to buy a ticket to that place? Would I venture out of my home? Would I ever reach that place if I do not want to go? Even if somebody bundles, if I was a small child, somebody may bundle me into a car. Or when we were children, we were taken by our parents wherever they wanted us to go. But then Ramana says that's not the case with self knowledge. Self knowledge you must seek out for yourself. It is your own true nature. You must find it out. And he says, if you're not interested, nobody else will be interested in giving it to you. So it is that we have to want to know who we are. And if we want to know who we are, then there is the method which Ramana has given, which is very simple because it is based on our own daily experience for every one of us. It is based on the experience that, yes, we are governed by our minds. And we are not happy because we are completely controlled by the movement of the mind. Though it is our mind, we are unable to be free of its clutches and its power to throw us into abysmal sorrow at any point of time for any situation which can happen outside, and we have no control over the situations outside. So, how can we be free unless we recognize, yes, I am living in my mind, but I don't need to do so. I don't need to do so because it is my mind, and if I understand what this mind is, it will no longer be powerful. Until I understand it, it is going to be powerful. The moment I understand what the mind is, it loses its power because I recognize mind is nothing but thoughts, and thoughts are my thoughts, and only if I am attending to an object, it becomes a thought for me. Otherwise, it is not there. And when I shift my attention to something else, the earlier thought is dead and gone. So it's completely in my power to pay attention. And why am I constantly paying attention to thoughts? Because I have grown to believe that they are only the source of my happiness. But no, I'm not worthless. On the other hand, I am the treasure house of bliss, the fullness. So if I let go the thought by recognizing that it is my own true nature, let me find out who is this I? Who is saying I within me? That which is saying I within me, one who is saying I within me, is not having eyes to see, these eyes, physical eyes, ears, nose, nothing. But there is something within me which is saying I. Who is that? Who is that who is saying I within me? I want to know because it is my life. Let me not go, pass away through life without knowing whose life it is, who is this I. When we have this eagerness, when we turn our attention back again and then again to that, it will be revealed because it is our own nature. It cannot be denied to us by anyone except our own inattention. Nothing else can deny it to us. And so, if we are eager, if we want to know, and we turn within with this intense question, who am I? Ramana says, the truth will be revealed to us, the truth about our own nature, and it is the most invaluable treasure that one can ever seek. It is the real answer one is seeking. No matter where one is searching, it is only for that one is searching. The example is given in tradition of the deer, the Kasturi Mriga, the deer who has the fragrance of Kasturi within herself. But the musk deer who has the fragrance of musk within herself searches everywhere in the forest. She follows the wind, thinking that the fragrance comes from elsewhere. but the fragrance comes from within her. So this fragrance of joy, the fragrance of peace, the fragrance of harmony and love is all our own true nature, which is available to us if we turn within lovingly, eagerly, and with the intense knowledge that that alone makes meaning to everything. It will be revealed, says Ramana, and this is the essence of his teaching, but one must practice it. One must go into it. One must live with it to truly experience it. It is not a matter of merely grasping it intellectually, which one may do even when one hears it first or reads about it, but one must practice it. Unless one practices it because of the habitual experiencing of the world as through this entity which I think is I, because of the strong conditioning to this entity, it is not easy to overcome that conditioning except through the real experience of one's true nature. So one must turn within and experience one's own true nature. But the wonder is, the true nature is ours and it's available. It's available. Nobody can deny it. It is our own. That is the wonderful part of the whole story, that it is available. That is available. Ever available. Every moment available. Never taken away. Never can be taken away from us. Never can be denied to us. And that great treasure is ours for the asking. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. If there are any questions, we could take those questions. There are many saying Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana, we say, which means prostrations to Ramana. Ramana is the self. Ramana himself has defined himself as the self. So when we say Ramana, we are referring to the self and his prostrations to the self. The teachings of Bhagavan Shri Ramana Maharshi are so simple that when we share them, they have to come out beautifully and they have to be joyous. Thank you. Thank you, Parshuramji. I don't find too many questions, and we still have a few minutes to go. And maybe I can share a little story, because there is a child in every one of us, right? I'll share a little story, an incident from the life of Ramana Maharshi, one of my favorite incidents. Many are there. And this is one of a visitor came to Shri Ramana Ashrama. And this visitor couldn't find Ramana Maharshi in the hall where he is usually seated. And he was never away from the hall. 24/7 people ate with him, people slept with him, people who can be available 24/7. There is no sense, there was no private moment, because he is the universe. That is what the self is. But that time they could not find him. And they searched, and they suddenly heard a sweet voice from a bush, from behind a bush in a kitchen garden. That voice said, "You naughty fellow, chi asatte." And they peeped and they saw an old man, and he had folded his haunches like that, put his knees up. He was sitting on his haunches, and there was on one knee a little squirrel, another knee there was a baby monkey, and in between there was a goat, a little goat, a baby goat, and there was in his hand a packet of peanuts. And he was taking one by one and feeding the three of them, and he was having also a fourth peanut. They were all together in that, what was called later by the devotee, the kitchen garden party, the universal oneness. And why he had scolded one of them, that was the baby monkey, because the monkey had tried to snatch the squirrel's share. And he said, Gee, Asatya, naughty fellow, you got your share. Why do you take someone else's share? And that is what it is. That is the universal availability. Nobody is denied this truth. It is available to all. One need not snatch it from somebody else. One gets one's share. It is always available to us from moment to moment. Such was the love which he shared. Such was the way in which he taught. And we often share the examples of the animal companions. He would not call them animals even. He would say they are all, he would call them children, or he would call them by name. But he taught them just as he would teach anyone, any human being, to reflect that there is all one. One of the devotees from abroad, she asked him, You say it's all one consciousness? You mean to say you, I, and my servant, we are all one? And he said, I, you, your servant, and the monkeys outside the window, they're all one in one consciousness. She said, The monkeys also? How can the monkeys be one? They're different. We at least are all human beings. He said, In one consciousness, all are one. There is no division. There is no difference. But how did he live? Did he live without seeing green from red or blue from yellow? Not like that. But in the awareness that everything is in that one consciousness, and all the roles are played best, most wonderfully they can be played, because there is no difference. And therefore, every moment is full. Every moment is full. Every moment gets its appropriate attention. There's nothing distracting us from that moment's beauty. There's nothing more important. When a child is asking something, the elders are speaking something, don't speak in between, is not there. Maybe if it is necessary, the child will be told, or the child will be given attention. Everything is beautiful. Everyone is wonderful. So that is the infinite marvel of self-abidance. And Ramana, that boy of 12 and that boy of 16, stayed for 54 years after that in the body to bring home the extraordinary glory of that state. If we go into his life, if we read about it, we find how beautiful it is. And he says it's yours as well. It's yours as well. It belongs to everyone. It's not just mine. If it was mine alone, it wouldn't be the truth. It is yours, it is yours, it is yours. It is everyone's. Everyone. And that's what it is. There is no one who's excluded. There's no being who's excluded. There's nothing which isn't excluded. In fact, we would say, even the stones are permeated with that consciousness. So that is the marvel, the glory. And I'm very thankful to Kalinga Literary Festival to have made me a part of this Bhava Samvad. Or is it Bhava Samvad? I think it's Bhava Samvad, right? So, because it's a wonderful opportunity to share Ramana's teachings, and every time we share it, we grow a bit closer to it. in awareness. So it's a beautiful opportunity. I thank Siddhamshuji, I thank Rashmiji, and I thank all the organizers of KLF for including Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning in this presentation.